Chapter 5 of the Lavender Dragon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Yuhan L. Jiang. The Lavender Dragon by Eden Phillpotts. Chapter 5. The Dragon Explains. At an elevation of about 1/4 of a mile, the Lavender Dragon pursued his aerial way. Beneath him, rustic sons of the morning went forth to their labours, and the pastoral life of the plains proceeded. Ahead, in a gloomy band against the western sky, extended the vast woodlands of Blore. Hither came the flying monster on leisurely wings, which flapped with a sound not unmusical, and created that Aeolian humming heard by those who have stood beneath telegraph wires in high wind. The stout horse and his rider in no way encumbered him. An owl thinks less of a fat mouse than the Lavender Dragon thought of the 2 tons he was now conveying through the air at a rate of 40 miles an hour. But Sir Jasper remained not silent under these indignities. "False wretch," he cried, "is it thus you keep your oath? Was it for this you shut your untruthful eyes at the name of our Creator, and swore that you would meet me in a life and death combat upon the crest of Rainbarrow? Cursed above all other dragons you shall be, and infamous in history while man is left upon the earth to read it. Little should I have imagined that dragon could do worse than dragon has already done, but you are the vilest, baddest progeny of an infamous breed. Your poisonous blood is upon your own head. You are lost. And if I doubted for a moment the outcome of our encounter, I doubt no more. Your fate is sealed, and whether my lance or another's drive you out of life, die you shall at the hand of outraged man, and that probably sooner than you imagine." But the Lavender Dragon answered never a word, and Sir Jasper, when his natural wrath was a little cooled, found reason asserted itself. It was clear that if his enemy replied, he must open his jaws to do so, in which event the knight suddenly perceived what would happen to him and his charger. They must fall to earth and be miserably and unromantically destroyed. But both were destined for another fate, and retreating into the tumultuous cavern of his own thoughts, Sir Jasper began to consider what might be expected to happen next. He felt tolerably sure that the dragon dared now not encounter him in fair fight, but would it presently be possible to force a battle? He hoped so, yet felt little certainty. The saurian had proved as artful as he was old, and his victim doubted not that, when again they came to earth, it must be under conditions where little opportunity offered to his right arm and silver lance. He was wrong again, however, for flying above the black pines of Blore for a league or thereabout, the dragon abated his speed and hovered over a clearing, where the little blossoms of wood strawberry, cyclamen, and lady slipper made a jewelry carpet amid the silver pillars of the forest. Gently, the monster volplaned down into this sequestered glen and opened his jaws to liberate the captives. "Compose yourself," said the Lavender Dragon, as soon as his mouth was free to speak. "Tidy your attire, doff your helm, suffer your charger to crop a little of this excellent pasture, and listen to me. You are naturally annoyed. I have put you into a position destructive of knightly dignity. I have struck confusion into those exalted ideals by which you rule your conduct. But one story is only as good until we have heard the other. I know exactly how you are feeling, and I am well aware that my dragon's blood is about the only thing that you suppose can wash out the extraordinary affront this day has put upon you. Sir Jasper, you shall have it. A pint, a quart, a flagon, a tierce, a barrel, but not until you have listened to what I am about to relate. I heard your remarks while we were on the wing, he continued, and I sympathise fully with your fury and indignation. You could hardly have said less, but in one particular your memory failed you and you were unjust to me. I never asserted that I would fight you on Rainbarrow. I distinctly saw that I would meet you there. I am a truthful dragon, and I choose my words, and I kept my oath. But let that pass. It is enough that I promise you full and complete satisfaction at a future date. Indeed, if you are still in the mind to it, today, before the sun goes down, you shall seek to destroy me without any unfair conditions whatsoever. A squire shall be furnished, and if your attractive war-horse is rendered less formidable and agile than usual by the events of this morning, you may have your choice of a dozen other splendid chargers as fine as he, all fresh and ready for the field. I fall on at once without further parley, declared Sir Jasper. I am a man of deeds, not words, and nothing you can possibly say will wipe this stain off my scutcheon. Only your own base heart's blood may do it. To fight before I have spoken would not suit me, answered the other in a calm but resolute voice. Sit here, cool your fiery forehead with a dock leaf, and listen a little longer. Do not imagine that you are in my hands. On the contrary, I am in yours. I, too, believe that deeds speak louder than words, as I hope to show you by noonday. But first, I insist upon it that you listen to me, and I give you my word, as a lover of truth, that you shall not listen in vain. With ill grace the young man flung himself upon the turf, and for a moment there was no sound but the steady cropping of his philosophic horse, whose custom was to gather a few rosebuds where and when he might. Then the Lavender dragon, assuming a recumbent attitude, proceeded in this curious fashion. Even as the world itself was hatched from the mundane egg made by our Creator, and the Phoenicians and Egyptians rightly maintain, so all primitive orders of living things likewise emerged to life in that manner. Dragons are among the most ancient of created beings, and they have unfortunately, though not, I fear, undeservedly, personified evil from the earliest times of man. Nowadays, we dragons stand as the symbol of sin in general, and paganism in particular. Satan has been termed the great dragon. It is declared that the saints shall trample the dragon under their feet. Mankind has also confused the dragon with chieftainship, hence pendragons, leaders, or kings created in times of peril. Since Apollo destroyed the python, there has reigned enmity between my species and all gods and men who stood for righteousness, and therefore you will judge of my personal astonishment when I came to years of understanding and found myself, not only on the side of the angels from the first, but also entirely opposed to the principles and practice of my own race. In fact, a dragon with a conscience, a freak of our common mother, a caprice of nature. My great-uncle was the celebrated dragon of Wantley in this county, and when he found that I entertained opinions subversive to our family interests and desired, if possible, to heal the breach established in primal time between our kindred and the children of men, he disowned me with fury, beat me cruelly, for I was then a mere dracondrolus, and cast me out. My parents were already dead, and I wandered friendless for some 3 centuries. Then my great-uncle perished under the sword and spear of More Hall, a very notable knight, and elsewhere, at other times and seasons, our dwindling race was decimated by yours, as history records. Among famous dragon slayers, of whom St. George, that beheaded the far-famed green dragon of Syria, stands first, are numbered St. Philip, the apostle, who accounted for the terror of Phrygia, St. Martha, who with unexampled courage destroyed Teresk, the scourge of Aix, St. Florent, who slew an ancestor of mine upon the law, while St. Caddo and St. Model of Brittany, and St. Keen of Cornwall, also played havoc with our clan. St. Michael and St. Margaret, Pope Sylvester and the Archbishop of Dol, Dettnus and St. Clement of Metz, all these eminent persons succeeded against us, and La Gorguli, a very formidable and gigantic dragon, responsible for much evil on the banks of Seine, fell at an advanced age to the galleot of St. Romian of Rouen. Thus we have gone down fighting to the last, and now, as I think, not above 6 of us shall be found in civilization, though a few still remain beyond its borders, concealed amid the sandy atras of Africa and the frozen forests of the north. For my part, all endeavours to make the world of men perceive that I desired their friendship failed. Nor do I blame anybody. Centuries of antagonism, suspicion, and hatred cannot be destroyed by an individual, no matter how great his goodwill. I went my way, found the woods of Blore, established my seat therein, and anon encountered a lady dragon, orphaned under the usual circumstances, and alone and friendless as myself. We loved at first sight, and contracted an alliance, but I hardly had erected a noble home, and built for my wife a fortified palace and castle worthy for her, when she left me, I hope and believe for a better world. She shared my opinions, and was of a tender and gentle disposition. She threw herself into my pursuits, learnt the human language of the country, which I had been at pains to master, and strove unavailingly to create some golden bridge of understanding, by which we could approach man in friendship for our common advantage. But, needless to say, she failed, and it was the result of wounds won in a frantic but futile attempt to charm a body of crossbow men upon the march, that she lost her beautiful life. Anon you shall see her grave in the centre of our public park at Dragonsville, for to my city I am about to convey you, Sir Jasper, and if, after you have inspected it, consulted those who inhabit it, and heard and seen such as I bestow upon me their affection and regard, if I say, after that experience, you still desire to fight me and lay me low, upon my honour you shall be granted every opportunity to do so. What remains to be said you must learn at a later time, but now, if you are rested, we will proceed and be at home for luncheon. I am a grass-eater like your noble charger, and doubtless some fine bales of sweet clover hay await us both. But for you it is already served such a banquet, and we are happy to prepare for a noble and welcome guest. They are then expecting us? Inquired the knight, and the Lavender dragon admitted that it was so. I confess to my little plot, he said. I was quite determined that you should enjoy wider knowledge of me and my ways before you attempted, perhaps successfully, to destroy me. A thing once done cannot be undone, Sir Jasper, and if by chance, in future time, you had learnt the truth, I am bold to believe that remorse might have darkened your soul and unavailing regrets cast a shadow on your unstained career. With that the dragon, tenderly picking up his new acquaintance and a piebald horse, ascended once more into the empyrean. They proceeded for a matter of 20 miles over the bosky gloom of the forest, and then the scene changed. A fair and sun-kissed vale opened beneath them, and, girdled by a mighty wall, Sir Jasper perceived what men of later time would have described as a remarkably large and distinguished garden city, watered by a sparkling river. Wide open spaces, adorned with lakes and fountains, noble trees and blazing passages of flower colour spread between human dwellings. These stood in the shape of a star, whose points extended to all quarters of the compass. The houses were solidly built of stone, and their roofs, of red and sun-baked tiles, seen from this elevation, presented a design of considerable charm. In their midst rose a gigantic castle of barbaric architecture, a place so hugely planned, with doors so vast and towers so lofty, that the Lavender dragon himself might move and dwell with comfort and elegance therein. It was his home, and upon an immense terrace before the southern front he now descended. Nor was there none to welcome him. To the amazement of Sir Jasper, 100 stalwart men, in the livery of the Lavender dragon, greeted the monster as he alighted. Their faces shone with well-being, and they crowded about him, cheered him, saluted the visitor with courtesy and friendship, and led away his agitated horse. Others took his spear and sword, while an old and kindly retainer begged that he would follow him, where he might rest, refresh, doff his armour, and presently partake of the banquet already prepared in his honour. "I will see you anon," said the Lavender dragon. "This is Nicholas Warrender, my seneschal. You will be happy with him and the company of our comrades until the afternoon. For the moment I want my dinner before all else." The dragon led the way into his castle, and settled himself with a mighty sigh above 6 huge trusses of sweet-smelling hay in his own dining-room, a chamber about twice as large as the Cathedral of St. Paul. But Nicholas Warrender, proceeding with Sir Jasper, conveyed him to an apartment, huge enough, yet not uncomfortably spacious, and there left him to make his toilet and choose from 100 comely garments what he would best like to put on. Arrayed at length in a doublet of grey velvet with amber slashings, comfortable grey hose, and a collar of delicate lawn, the knight struck a bell upon his table, and Nicholas returned. He led the dragon's guest into an apartment where some 200 men and women already awaited him, and the seneschal introduced Sir Jasper to the dozen of the party, who welcomed him with much friendship and good cheer. They were for the most part elderly, but age sat lightly about them, and the guest could not fail to note that in their faces one saw no lines of care, no haggard tell-tale stamp of sorrow hidden or tribulation concealed. There was happiness, not simulation of the thing, proper to all well-bred and tactful companies meeting together about some common business of counsel or entertainment, but a genuine emotion. And furthermore, he almost felt embarrassed by the manner of their greeting, for their one concern was his own comfort and pleasure. They vied with each other in the warmth of welcome. They revealed nothing concerning themselves, but displayed only an altruistic regard for his satisfaction in every particular. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "would you kill me with kindness?" "Kindness never kills," declared Nicholas Warrender. "Kindness, Sir Knight, is the small exchange of good heart, given to all who extend a hand for it, and as gladly to be received as given. Kindness, in fact, makes our wheels go round, and if it becomes a human habit, however, we are not here to preach, but eat. These lampreys come from our own river and are worthy of your attention." After the meal, Sir Jasper was introduced to a great number of men and women, and others of a younger generation also entered, that they might see and speak with him. If the elders were cheerful with the light of contentment upon their faces, how much more did the same radiance illuminate the young. Maids and boys appeared equally joyous. They greeted the guest with an ingenious delight and respect, which Sir Jasper was well qualified to appreciate, and in the shy friendship of these young people he swiftly found an exquisite pleasure. They, too, according to their ages and predilections, offered him what they themselves most appreciated. The girls begged him to come and dance with them, or hear them sing. The boys, heedless that he had just dined after a trying journey, hoped that he would join their games and suffer them to teach them new and ravishing pastimes. Then happened a strange thing, for among those introduced to his notice, Sir Jasper heard many names not unfamiliar. "This," said the sentinel, "is Thomas Fagg, the woodcutter, and our friend with the dusty face is good Master Hobnob, who helps bake our bread. Here stands Nicholas Prance, once on the time a master thatcher, but in Dragonsville the houses are all tiled, so he has learnt a new trade. This is our oldest inhabitant, of course, after LD himself, John Cobley, aged 95, once a swineherd, now enjoying his old age and the object of our special care. Here you see Mistress Avisa Snell, and Anne, her daughter, promised in marriage to Billy Gregg, the keeper of the fountains. This pretty maid is Mary Fern, who lost her man in the wars and was just going, silly soul, to take her beautiful and useless life, when LD found her and brought her amongst us. Betsy Snow and Jennifer Mardles are towers of strength when good plain sewing is to be done. And here is our last arrival before your honoured self. Come forward, Abram Archer, and salute Sir Jasper." The whiffy cutter, last seen in the jaws of the dragon, stepped from the throng. He looked still a little dazed, as a man who had just emerged from a dream, but he was laughing and evidently well pleased to find himself among so many old friends in this flourishing settlement. "I bring these good people to your notice," proceeded Nicholas Warrender, "because they are all Pongy in the Marsh folk, and you may by chance have heard their names." "I heard that they had all been devoured by the Lavender dragon," answered Sir Jasper, and his remark awakened every hearty merriment. "We come here to eat, not to be eaten," said Hugh Hobnob, "for what is Dragonsville but a glorified Pongley after all?" "A Pongley where there is happiness instead of anxiety, health instead of sickness, abundance in a place of scarcity," added the sentinel. "Here we work, but never for ourselves. Note that, perceive, for instance, our gardens. I will show them to you." The company stepped into the air, and many walked beside Sir Jasper as he accompanied his guide. "We are great gardeners," continued the sentinel, "yet nobody ever does a day's work in his own. Everybody applies his best energies and skill to the garden of someone else. To cultivate your garden is very good, and we are all well advised to do so, but how much better to cultivate the garden of your neighbour? It is, in fact, one of our greatest delights to create horticultural surprises for our friends." "Surely confusion might arise, and disappointment, since tastes differ on the subject as on any other," suggested the knight. "Confusion does arise," admitted Nicholas. "Thus he who hoped for radishes might find a superfluity of turnips in his garth, while the lover of kale is snowed under with endive or spring onions. But what of it? Nothing results save cheerful laughter, and never was a better joke than when Jane Blee, who is devoted to the carrot and parsnip, discovered her garden patch obliterated under tansy and alkanet. Even LD, who sees a joke with utmost difficulty, laughed along at Jane. But what did she do? Why, seek the gardens of her neighbours, and help herself to all that she desired. For our good things are in common, and our chef delight is to give of our best where it will be most appreciated. This principle runs through all our rule of living. It actuates old and young. It is the mainspring of Dragonsville, hence the brightness of our faces and the heartiness of our laughter. And what is the underlying impulse of this curious vagary? Inquired the visitor. How call you this spirit, which accounts for your well-doing and well-being? For the particulars you must listen to LD, replied the grey-beard. And when I say LD, think it no term of undue familiarity or disrespect. Thus we all speak of the Lavender dragon, both behind and before his face. It was his own idea, for we were desirous of a more respectable and sonorous title. Indeed, we offered him a crown once, and on that occasion he did indeed laugh, so riotously that he blew down a score of houses and devastated several acres of his own favourite food, kidney beans. But he declined the diadem. He would not even accept the office of president. I am, said our dragon, just LD to you all, no more, no less. Your friend, so long as you will permit it, your well-wisher and your companion in this arduous business of living out the years of our lives with dignity, energy, and common advantage. And tell me of Lilian Lovenot, begged Sir Jasper. She too was a Pongley maiden, and I assure you that her disappearance caused much bitter feeling, for she was loved and cherished and held the pride and top flower of all the hamlet. The seneschal's face fell. It may be so. LD rarely errs, but it is true that once or perhaps twice he has brought among us those who showed an inclination to return whence they came. His rule, however, is to seek out only the lonely, the sad, the failures, the careworn and life-stained people, or the young who are unwanted and unloved, all such as have only heard of happiness. Hence his predilection for orphans, no doubt, murmured Sir Jasper. Exactly. In the case of Lilian, LD judged that she would be happier here, because among us are not a few of her own standing and rank, for he was aware that the Lovenots were no parents of hers. He thought, therefore, of her own happiness, and I fear rather overlooked the pleasure she had already given to others, a singular lapse from his own standards. Pongley's loss, however, was Lilian's gain. She is exceedingly joyous at present, lives in the castle, and ministers no little to LD's own content. For, while the bulk of us are only concerned to make each other happy, and so indirectly please the master of Dragonsville, a few of the more learned and cultured, such as can speak wisely or sing harmoniously, spend a measure of their time with him. He delights in music and storytelling, and his chief material pleasure is to sit in the great central fountain and let the jet beat down upon him as it falls. This is not always good for him, however. He is much afflicted with gout, and the distemper will carry him off some day. These fields on our right are entirely devoted to growing Colchium autumnal, a crocus of the fall, from whose roots and leaves our doctor compounds the medicine to lessen LD's suffering. They sauntered through the little cobbled streets presently, where folk were busy about their affairs. We are, of course, a pastoral people, explained the censor. But there is a certain amount of industrial activity among us, also, and that we are self-supporting in every way. We grow our herds, weave and spin our wool, delve into the earth for iron, and make of it our needful implements. Life is simple here, because the need for money does not exist. And even if it did, to save were impossible by reason of the law that directs and controls everything. Giving is the watchword here, and getting conveys no impression to the rising generation, while to us elders, this business of getting merely signifies the reactionary and unsocial process which keeps the outer world so short of the content and happiness we enjoy. But hither comes the merry man of the castle. LD is probably anxious to see you, and sends his messenger. It was so, and Sir Jasper learnt from a jester, who now approached, that his presence in the great hall of reception would be welcome. The buffoon was by no means as cheerful as many of his companions, but only a facial accident explained his apparent depression. He was a dry bird by the name of Dicky Gollop, as he explained to Sir Jasper how, on an occasion of hawking with his former master, he had made a jest which the Baron, who now owned him, took in bad part. Before I could explain my point, said Dicky, the dull old dog alighted from his horse, directed a dozen varlets to pinion me against a tree, then beat me with the flat face of his sword until I lost consciousness. There he left me, still crucified to the pine, and there I must have perished, but for LD, who passing that way, saved the situation. I've regained my understanding in Dragonsville, and rejoice to abide here. I have but one daily regret, and honestly I believe that I am the only member of the community who regrets anything at all. What may that be? Inquired Sir Jasper. My inability to strike the right note of humour for LD, replied Dicky Gollop. It is not my fault, for I really can be funny when in good form. Others will tell you of my jokes and quips, my quirks and quiddities. I am an excellent wag, and make men, and even women, lose themselves in hurricanes of laughter. My repartee is rapier-like, my badinage bewildered with lightning flashes, for a guillemotte, a quibble, a conundrum, or a double entendre, there is nobody to approach me, and yet I lack the power to make my reverend master enjoy the luxury of a hearty roar. Perhaps that is as well from all I hear, replied the knight, but Dicky would not allow it. No, my mission, so far as he is concerned, is a failure, and he knows it. He is as sorry for me as I am for myself. He tries to make me happy by laughing at my jocularity, but jesters are not deceived. Nobody knows quicker than Tomfool if his tomfoolery is touching the spot, and in the ordinary high-class establishments, where jesters form part of the retinue, if we don't give our employers sore sight, we soon receive them. But LD never shows any impatience at my failure. He observes that I entertain other people, and since the happiness of others is the only thing he cares a brass button about, in this vicarious sense I please him too. As a man, therefore, I am content, but as an artist I shall ever harbour a sense of disappointment. But Dicky's trouble did not interest Sir Jasper. He was himself devoid of humour, and he could not find it in his heart to blame the Lavender dragon's indifference. Many, he said, derive no great entertainment from the glib of tongues and often questionable drolleries of your class. If you do not actually irritate your master, you should be content. You are not an artist, then, ventured Dicky. No, replied Sir Jasper, I am a serious man engaged in making the world better than I find it. To be merrier is also to be better, declared the mirth-provoker. Man is the only laughing animal, and laughter is too little respected. Every child should be taught to laugh like a gentleman, since there are horrid forms of laughter, which might be cured in youth but not afterwards. Those who help the world to laugh, Sir Knight, are worthy of respect as great as the mighty ones, and the lovers of bloodshed and battle who help it to cry. At least, that is L.D.'s opinion, and I shall make him laugh yet if I break my heart a-trying. With that, they entered the draconian presence together. End of chapter 5.